Hello there gorgeous gamers and welcome back to Pure Play TV, and we have our review for In My Shadow, a physics puzzler all about shadows. Is it any good or will it sit in the shadow of other games? Watch on and find out. Most popular physics games seem to build themselves around some unique gimmick. Matching colours, making things bigger or smaller, you name it, most, if not all of the most recent physics puzzlers seem to try and do something new in order to stand out. And In My Shadow is no different. In My Shadow has you playing as Bella, who must use shadows to navigate obstacles in small self-contained levels. These shadows are created as you move and rotate furniture in a fixed grid, which in turn affects the shadow projected onto the wall. These shadows then serve as Bella's play space, as she is able to run and jump along the shadows that you have created. When you're happy with the shadow path you've made, you can shift perspective from 3D to 2D in order to navigate the shadows in a simple platforming fashion. Throw in some items to collect and some obstacles to avoid, mixed together with a story that's a bit heavier than it needs to be, and that is In My Shadow in a nutshell. I must confess that at first I was very impressed with the physics at work. Rotating objects impacts the shadow created as you would expect, and moving them closer to the imaginary light source makes their shadow bigger or smaller. Initially, I had a lot of fun maneuvering each object in order to navigate the relatively simple platforming sections. For example, if I put the box here, can I jump high enough to collect that item? If I rotate the chair just right, can I skip out this section altogether? By the very nature of the physics at play, it's easy to imagine that there is more than one way to complete any given level. The simple idea is used really well throughout the 2 hours or so it took me to complete the game's 40-ish levels, although the novelty of rotating and moving objects to manipulate their shadows had worn off towards the end. As I neared the last few levels, I stopped experimenting and I was just content with simply putting my head down and finishing off the levels without too much fuss. The issue I had with In My Shadow is that after the first few levels, it doesn't really do anything imaginative with the shadow gameplay that's built around it. There's a slight shift halfway through when the game introduces a second wall running perpendicular to the first, which means you have to think even harder about object placement and the shadows that they create. But I couldn't shift the nagging feeling that somehow In My Shadow had missed the trick by not pushing the idea further. The main problem is that once you have the hang of the game's mechanics, the rest of the levels are not too taxing and they can be beaten with nothing more than a bit of persistence combined with trial and error. When puzzles can be beaten with nothing more than a bit of brute force, a certain elegance is lost, and that seems to be the case here. And yes, I did say 2 hours. In My Shadow is a fairly short experience. There's no timer or anything that forces you to rush or beat the game quickly, but I still managed to finish the game in just a little over 2 hours. There is a trophy for completing the game in under 3 hours, which I managed to pick up completely by accident, so if you're looking for a game to waste away long hours with, then you would be best off looking elsewhere. That's not to say I didn't enjoy my short time with In My Shadow. The Shadowplay mechanic is unique and it works surprisingly well, and the game itself is really fun to play. Plus, each level is short, meaning it's easy to jump in for a quick 10-minute bout if you're pressed for time. That being said, it should come as no surprise to hear that In My Shadow was previously released on mobile, as well as PC, and so it's very easy to imagine playing this one on the go in short bursts. There were a few frustrating sections too. A couple of levels seemed to lack textures, which wouldn't be that big a deal if they weren't the bloody spikes that killed you. This happened to me on more than one occasion, whereby I would die without even being able to see the spikes that kicked my arse. In the end, I had to get by on trial and error, having to guess where the invisible spikes were hiding. As each level is relatively short, this wasn't as big of a deal as it could have been, simply because it was easy enough to jump back in and give it another go without much stress. Even so, it was a needless pain that should have been avoided, and it's definitely worth a mention here. Each level stands alone, but there is a story if you want it. Being totally honest, the story did not do much for me, and it did feel a little tacked on, as most stories do with puzzle games. Told through a series of flashback animations that take place in between levels, the story and the gameplay never quite marry together. Is this game going to knock your socks off? Not likely. In My Shadow kept me entertained for the few hours it took for me to complete it, but once the end credits rolled, I wasn't really itching to jump back in. If you enjoy physics-based puzzle games, then In My Shadow is a quick fix that may scratch your little itch, and it should be applauded for trying something different. Plus, at under 3 hours runtime, it's a quick and easy platinum trophy if that's your thing. And that is the end of this review. Thank you very much for watching, as always, and if you did enjoy this video, do us a massive favour, feed the greedy algorithm by liking, commenting, and best of all, sharing with your mates. If you didn't like the video and you thought it was utter crap, share it with an enemy and ruin their day. Still helps us, so thanks. I've been Chris, you've been gorgeous, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, cheers my dears.